So, Kevin, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast tonight for this episode of the Cameron Brown Show. It's actually episode 45 of the
That's
Cameron
awesome, man. Congratulations on that. That's great.
Appreciate it. So we've been doing this for almost a year now. Really enjoyed having some of the guests on and getting to this point. But I'm really pumped to kind of have this conversation. We've been talking back and forth for a while now. We've actually known each other for years.
Mhm.
A lot of that has been around the political scene. So I'm excited about diving into the political landscape a bit tonight. But just for those that are listening in, Kevin is an attorney in Port Royal, South Carolina. And he's also the mayor of Port Royal, South Carolina, and has a beautiful family. And these are all things we're going to discuss tonight on the podcast. But Kevin, I'll kind of let you take it away. Give us a little bit deeper of a background on yourself, and then we will jump into some current events and some fun current events as well.
No, absolutely. And that's good. Good for you. Thanks for letting me have here. Two things people love: politicians and lawyers. So, combination right here. But no, it's actually I enjoy both of those things. I know there's tons of jokes about lawyers and politicians, but I really do enjoy both of those aspects of my life. As you just mentioned, my wife and I, we do have a 15-month-old little girl. We're having another little girl in July. So 2 girls under 2. So that's going to
congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So originally I'm from a place, the suburbs of Atlanta, Snellville, Georgia. Went to college at the College of Charleston. Went to Charleston School of Law. When I moved to there, I'd visited Charleston and the Lowcountry of South Carolina growing up, being from Georgia. But when I spent a considerable amount of time there, I, like so many other people, fell in love with the area. It's absolutely gorgeous. The culture, the people, the history, the natural beauty. I mean, it gets in you. It's something that it changes you. And if you allow it, it drew me to it. When I was in college, I had the privilege of having a friend that was from Beaufort, South Carolina. For those that don't know, Beaufort is basically right between Charleston and Savannah. So you come down the coast and Beaufort County's right there. Hilton Head is probably the most famous place that people know in Beaufort, but there's also a little town in there called Port Royal, South Carolina. 16,000 people. We're right there in the base of the Beaufort and Battery Creek River. But anyways, I came down, I visited, and just really fell in love with this area. It was a little bit smaller than Charleston. Sometimes we call it, a little Charleston light, diet Charleston. It still is. You still get that feel of the culture, the history, the water, but it was just a little more hometown. And I tell people, I joke, I said I had my Pat Conroy moment. Pat Conroy and all his famous books and movies are from Beaufort. And really it was just like, that's where I'm moved here after graduation. Got hooked up with the Schiller Hamilton law firm. Great law firm. We're a personal injury law firm. We have offices all across the state. Of course, I work out of the one here in Beaufort. Like personal injury law, really just helping people. That's what we do. But it's and then also too, I mean, when I was an undergraduate, I'd done a little bit of politics. I was a senator at the College of Charleston, SGA, Student Government Association, and all that kind of stuff, and really enjoyed it. And really love local politics. I think that I wish so many people would focus more on what's happening, down the street at their city hall or their, county council building, and not so much about what's happening on Fox News and CNN. While that stuff is important, so is, what's literally happening at your town hall. So back in 2019, ran for town council, was on council for 4 years. And then in 2023, decided to run for mayor. Fortunately, when it worked out and we won. And so I've been mayor now for, last year was the first full year. And so now I'm coming up on whatever this 15 months, 16 months, and it's going really well. We're doing a lot of really good things, and I'm really enjoying it a lot. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of from Snellville to Port Royal and everything in between. So.
All right, real talk. Whether I'm gearing up for a tough workout or preparing for an episode of the Cameron Brown Show, I need to be locked in. And that's where A-Bomb Energy comes in play.
This stuff isn't just another energy drink. It was actually created by an Army Special Ops combat medic who wanted something better, something that actually helps you think clearer, focus longer, and retain information, not just give you a quick caffeine spike. And I can tell you, it really works. I've been drinking A-Bomb before I hit the gym, and it's like flipping a switch. My focus is on point, my energy is steady, and I don't get that crash afterward.
Same when I'm recording this podcast. I need to be sharp, engaged, and A-Bomb helps me stay in the zone. Plus, it actually tastes great. So if you're looking for something that gives you a real mental and physical edge, go check them out at abombenergy.com. And when you order, just type Cameron in the notes so they know that I sent you. Trust me, you're going to feel the difference.
I love it. So I don't know how many years ago it was. It feels like it's been 10 years. It might have frankly been 10 years ago because I was in college, I believe, when we first initially met. And I think, just in talking about politics back then versus politics today, the landscape has changed a bit, right? Obviously, Trump was president in 2016. And so we got to experience kind of that run up while I was in college and during that period of time. And obviously, he's now president again. So things at a federal level are kind of shifting back towards what they were 10 years ago. So I think you and I are reconnecting at an interesting time where we're going to kind of see that shift and that change from then to now. But to your point about getting involved in local politics, I've had this conversation with so many people where it's like, hey, just go do something at a local level. Stop paying attention to everything federally. Frankly, if you've never been in politics, you need to start at a local level to even better understand how any of that impacts you in the first place, too. You need to really get connected at a local level to see it and to feel it.
Absolutely.
Because that's where a lot of those things are happening that impact you on a day-to-day basis. And there's you can make calls to your senator and you can make calls to your congressman, but
you can be one of the 10,000 phone calls they get. Yes. Or you can go to your city hall and be like one of the 10 people there
and actually make something happen.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've seen it all the time. I mean, people, they come to our council meetings and a few motivated individuals can really make changes in their community. I mean, it really is. You go to those council meetings, you have a consistent message, and you talk to those council members. I mean, you got in Port Royal, there's a mayor and 4 council members, and we all have an equal vote, but there's 5 of us. I mean, so you literally can in 1 week you could grab a coffee with every single one of us. And so it's really accessible. I try to encourage people because I also think it's just such a privilege. I mean, we live in this great country called the United States of America. I see the map behind you. What we have here is not in a lot of those places. It was given to us. It's a gift. And we have I take it as a responsibility to do what we can to engage with it and preserve it and protect it and hand it off to future generations. So
you've kind of always had that feeling ever since I've met you too. I mean, we're both, I'd say, pretty patriotic individuals. Yourself, absolutely a very patriotic individual. But since you're having your first child, has that kind of changed for you, or like has it become more intensified since having and building your family?
Yeah, I mean, definitely have looked at things differently. Before, now I'm, and she's still 1 or 2, but you start thinking about the school system. I didn't, before having children, I did not engage with the school system at all. But now I'm starting to look like, okay, well, she's going to be going there soon. Like what's, and it's not even so much the books and what they're teaching, which is important, but it's, transportation. It's where are they located? How are people getting there? How does it function? So yeah, you start looking at things differently. I mean, of course, before having children, it's, it definitely opens up your eyes to it's not all about you. And so it has been really, like I said, it's made me more aware of a lot of different things.
Right. I'm sure. You also started off town council when we met 10 years ago. Was that kind of the plan at the time, or did you have other aspirations? I'm just curious because I feel
I don't think so. I think so. Okay. Fun story. So when I was in Charleston, I was at College of Charleston. I was in student government. A council member named Mike Seekings. I believe he's still on the city of Charleston's council. He's been on there for a while. He's voted best council member. Great guy, like a really great guy. He came to one of our meetings at the Student Government Association and said, hey, I need volunteers to go knock on doors. He was campaigning. And it's one thing, sometimes with being the mayor, I get to talk to kids at schools and stuff like that. And I always tell them, like, say yes. Like, that's one of my big messages to them. It's like, somebody comes to you with a volunteer opportunity and you're young and it's like, why would you not, Say yes. You never know where that's going to lead, what door that's going to open, what connection that's going to make, and how much it's going to alter your life. So Mike Seekings come to a council meeting. I think me and one other person raised our hands because, he's like, we're going to go volunteer, knock doors with him on a Saturday. But I got to spend a lot of time with him. And that was my introduction to local politics. And I always knew this is really great because you really can, if you have a desire to serve people and to, help your community and improve your community, then that's where it's at. And I started going to the City of Charleston's council meetings, which is still one of my favorite like council chambers. If anyone's never gone to it, it is so cool. A lot of councils are, they have new buildings. Charleston's is down there in the four corners of law. It's still, you walk in there and it's just like a throwback in time. And it's such a cool council chambers to go to with all of the history in that room. So I started going there, and I don't know if that was ever the plan, but I got to Port Royal. I fell in love, and I was like, this is where I'm going to live. This is where I'm going to start my career. This is where I'm going to be. This is where I'm making this place my home. And so that was just, so getting involved was just natural. I don't know if it was run for an office, but one of the first things I did when I got here was just go to a council meeting. And just, so that was kind of the start of it.
I love it. Once again, we talked about when you were very involved at that time too, and just in general, and that's kind of how we started this friendship. And I think what's interesting to me too is we were talking at that time about making politics cool, and I think we've been talking about that for a very long time. It's like getting people involved in politics where people see and perceive politicians and lawyers, to your point, in different ways, right? And sometimes good, sometimes bad, whatever. But at the time, it was like, how do we get more young people involved in politics, and how do we get them to be actually interested in these decisions and doing these things? So I guess as a follow-up to that, what have you been doing to make politics more cool again?
So I can't, and one, I just tell you, one, it is cool. The idea that you as an individual person can go and have a say and make a change and a difference and do it in a positive and a constructive way is cool. Like, and so I think one thing I've been doing is I've encouraged a lot of not a lot, but friends of mine to run for elected positions. And so I could say, I've had a couple friends, on the younger spectrum of things, run for Beaufort County Council. I've got a couple friends that have run and been elected are now on Beaufort County Council. I've got a friend that ran and is now on Beaufort City Council. So that's one thing, is I've just encouraged people. I've tried to, like show people here, you can do it. Like, it's not crazy. Like, it is work and it takes dedication, and it's not, I wouldn't say easy, but it's not impossible to run for Port Royal Town Council. You fill out a form and you pay $100 and you're on the ballot. So do you have $100? Can you sign your name on a piece of paper? That's it. And then, and kids are a lot of, younger people, very tech savvy. Make a website, make a Facebook page, and then just start walking around and talking to people. Like, it's that simple. So, I just try and, like I said, encourage people. I try to show people, here, if you, I will sit down with anybody. Trust me, I get phone calls and messages from kids and in high school, college. I want to get involved. I grab a coffee with them, and I encourage them. An easy way is there's boards, there's commissions, there's a bunch of ways to do it. But I think just being out there and just showing it and just saying, hey, there's nothing special over here. I was just willing to do it. I was willing to pay my $100 and sign the piece of paper, and you can too. So
100%. Well, like you said too, it's really cool to be a part of this experiment that we call the USA, right? And
awesome.
I think in our call last night too, I made the comment that it's the greatest experiment of all time up to this point, right? And humans in general will hopefully continue to develop really great things, and will continue to evolve it into, I would say an even better system. But that's kind of the beauty of being involved in politics, is you get to create a better system. You get to be a part of creating a better system and making better decisions for your community. So there's something beautiful about doing that and getting involved. But so talking about making it cool, it was always such a hard conversation to have with friends of mine that was like, politics isn't fun. It's not cool. I was like, I love it though. I love it, and I want you to enjoy it too.
Yes,
and you really should get involved in it, because it impacts you on a day-to-day basis. And so as kind of moving into the mayoral race, like from city council or town council to becoming mayor, was there a mindset shift there, or was it more so just, I now know my city really, really well, and I'm ready to represent it as mayor instead of
city council? I just, I thought about, I spent a lot of time out in the community. That was, I think that's important. I think you really can't, represent people unless you know people. You can't know people unless you spend time with people. Right. And so I would go to everything, every festival, every event. If I was available, I would go. Of course, I got, work and family commitments that you have to honor. But if I was available, I was just going to stuff and talking to people and listening to people.
Right.
You listen to people, one thing that was constantly being said around here was stuff about the growth, the rapid growth that the areas that are experiencing. And people were this constant feeling of like, no one's listening to us. And I was like, well, that's not good, because it's the whole listening to the people is kind of the whole point. So, I just kind of, like I said, that was where the majority of it came from, was just going out, spending time with people, having them just reiterate over and over, like, and sometimes that's perception, sometimes that maybe was true, but maybe things were being done that were positive. They could be communicated better to the public, so the public did feel as though they were being heard. But that was what really got me into it. I just had a bunch of people that were like, that I wanted to represent, and I wanted to represent them because I knew them. They're my neighbors. They're in my community, and I care about them.
I love it. I love it. I'm sure you learned a lot as mayor. What is really kind of one of your biggest experiences or learning lessons in this new role as mayor? Or what are some of the learning lessons or experiences you had?
So, I mean, the one of the things that can be difficult is always, but it's so beneficial. It's just like that you hear a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And if you're getting into it to everybody tell you you're doing a great job and get a bunch of pats on the back, that's not gonna happen. People they come to you when there's an issue, so you have to be okay with that. You have to just be okay with constantly try it. You know what I'm saying? We're just making effort. Maybe we didn't hit the mark, but we just keep trying, like just always getting better, knowing that you're never gonna get it 100%. So that's been the biggest one. Well, I don't know if that's the biggest one, but just in understanding that that's where people are coming from, not personal. When they have a problem with something in the town, that's not an attack on you. It's just they have an issue. It's something that they see every day. It's frustrating to them, and just trying to keep that positive, happy warrior, happy work kind of attitude. So,
well, I can imagine too, between that and work, and especially being an attorney, you're dealing with a lot of client-facing issues on a day-to-day basis. So it's, I'm sure it's very similar in the sense of you're dealing with client-facing issues. One's just a constituent, and one's a client.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also family and everything else that you're juggling simultaneously.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how much or complex that can be, right? And also, putting them into buckets of sorts and kind of putting on your mayor hat versus the attorney hat versus the dad and husband hat, and all the above. So definitely commend you for that. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays too, it feels like, for me at least, avoid responsibility in a lot of ways. And I don't mean that to be brutal to people, but you are, once again, not only a mayor, you're a dad and you're an attorney, right? There's a lot going on there. Not many people would be willing to pick up one or two of those, right? It's commendable in that regard. But I'm also saying that to say it's very impressive that you're able to juggle all the above. So,
well, you have to. I'll tell you this one. Another thing too is keeping that perspective and being able to say no. I think people that do, you want to help, and you'll get a lot of opportunities. I mean, you're always getting asked, hey, we got an opening on this board. We got an opening on this. We got an opening on that. Can you do this? Can you be here? Can you be there? And just recognizing that people they're not going to, hate you because you can't be everywhere all the time. You make your best effort, you communicate that, and people understand that you have a family and you have a job and you have other things to do. I always tell people a lot of times, like when I'm getting those, I'm asked to be on this board, be on that, be on this, and I can't do them all. I say to people, hey, I would love to join that board, but I don't have the time to commit to that. But I'm a resource.
Right.
Think of me if you need help with something, come to me and I will try and connect you with who you need to be connected with. If you're doing something in Port Royal, like, I'm a resource. I can't be at every board meeting, but I'll pick up the phone when you call me,
Yep. So. Absolutely. So just a bit of a shift here. And is there anything else just in being mayor that you want to talk about real quick that maybe just comes to mind immediately? You're like, this has been a really cool experience, or being a part of as mayor, that I really enjoyed doing X, Y, and Z, before I shift to current events. I just want to make sure we hit on being mayor first before we do that.
No. And I just personally, I feel very blessed. I mean, I have, when most municipalities, a lot of municipalities, they're nonpartisan. they're at large. So I don't represent District 1 and someone else District 4. We all represent, all 5 of us represent the town of Port Royal. It's nonpartisan. We really get together and we just try and help and fix issues and make the town better. One thing and so that's been a real pleasure, is to like literally everyone is on the same team working together, and that's great. One other thing that's been great is Port Royal right now is going through a major growth is happening, but also too, we have a partner, and there's a company called Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor has purchased a marina property on the port, on the water here in Port Royal, and it is going to be a big deal. It's hard to overstate what it's going to do. It is going to change the trajectory of the town. Some good, we will lose some things will change, of course, but we are going in a direction, and it's really exciting to be a part of a town while it's growing, and getting to watch that and watch, there's a lot of places around our state, and there's a lot of places around the country that aren't growing. People are leaving, they're losing populations. They're having questions about, how do we get people here? We don't have that, and Charleston doesn't have that problem. Like Mount Pleasant doesn't have that problem.
Amen. We are very well aware of that.
People want to be here, and so it is such a cool opportunity to be in a town and say, how do we want to manage this growth in the right way? How do we want to build this town in the right way? How do we want to just really create our future? Like, we are the future. It's kind of corny, but the future is ours, and we are creating it right now. And so that's what really excites me every day, just when you see new things happening and you get to be a part of it. And so that's really is exciting for Port Royal. And there's a lot of big things coming, and Port Royal is going to grow and be something that continues to be productive and positive, and just like I said, getting to be a part of that is really, really cool.
It's huge. I'm sure you're getting a lot of pushback too, and I'm just as it sounds like it's already happened. It's already probably agreed to with Safe Harbor, but I'm assuming in the process of all these things happening, you were probably getting a lot of pushback from the community, people that wanted certain things to say one way, and others that wanted growth. And you're obviously trying to find probably a happy medium of sorts to grow, but also keep everybody happy.
Well, that's one of the things. I think that's part of the job is balancing the interests of all stakeholders, and that's you try and do that. And again, I think that goes back to spending time with people and listening to them. So because you've got the development community, you've got the residents, you've got the tourist community, you've got we've got a lot of military presence here, you've got the conservationists, and all of them have their interests. You try to balance that as much as you can. So
100%. Kevin, I've heard this a lot as of late. I'm just going to throw it out there, and I'll let you respond accordingly. All politicians are corrupt. What is your initial thought to that statement?
It's probably true for some. Okay. Anytime you have concentrations of power and money, you're going to get corruption in any field. I can tell you here, especially at the local level, that is, I would say I don't see anything like that. I don't see anything in our meetings or in our executive sessions that cause me to worry. I see people that are genuinely have a servant's heart and are doing the best they can. Most of the time they are making sacrifices away from their businesses, away from their families, to go to these meetings, to go to these conferences, to work and to serve the town. So I don't see that. But again, I'm in the town of Port Royal, with a budget of $10 million. I don't know what it's like being in the United States Congress, where you have a budget of,
7 trillion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, more, trillions by the day. So I'm sure that invites all kinds. Who knows? But it's there. I also think that a lot of that stuff I think is really old school in some ways. Nowadays you hear stories about the good old days, and like the town would build something, and then like somebody on council's brother would get the contract, and then okay,
you got the 10% kickback.
Yeah. Nowadays, with the internet and everybody's access to information, there's a lot that stuff I don't really see that happening. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, when I was talking about making politics cool earlier, I think it's kind of goes back to like making politicians not seem so corrupt again, right? It's like, how do we, which I say again, like that's never really, we know there's plenty of corruption, but also kind of getting to a point where we recognize the hard work and the servant leadership attitude that comes from good politicians, and being able to support them and push more people to get involved in politics, because we need more people, frankly, like yourself, to get involved in politics with the right heart and the right mind. And
well, if somebody says that, it's, oh, they're all corrupt. It's like, well, are you going to do anything about it? Or are you going to use that as an excuse to not do it too? Well, I don't want to get involved with that. It's like, well, that sounds like you're making an excuse to me.
So you're not going to get involved, but you're going to be a keyboard warrior and make plenty of comments on Facebook, I'm sure.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, it's always funny to me too. I'm like, so why don't you go get involved? I've done that so many times, and it's like, if you have a problem with it, go get involved. Don't rant about it online. Go actually do something about it. And the way you do that, it starts at a local level, but frankly, go get involved in some kind of organization.
And I'll say this, when I want people, and another thing is, getting involved takes a lot of different forms. You don't have to run for office. You can just work on campaigns. What you're involved right now, starting a podcast and just talking to people, like, that's involved. Involved is not, I'm telling everybody to go get elected, because that's not what everybody, needs to be doing or wants to be doing. Getting involved takes a lot of forms. Like, just go to a meeting. Like, again, you're involved. This right here is you getting involved. So
yeah, absolutely. So on from that, and I'm sure we'll probably wrap around to it here in a bit. As it relates to current events, though, I'm just curious to know, because the market is tanking right now.
Yes.
Lots of crazy things are happening. As of today is the 7th of April. And so with the world and kind of this position we're in, I'd love to know your thoughts on, can we talk about tariffs? Can we go there for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just talk about tariffs and the current administration, maybe what's going on. I'd love to kind of know what your thoughts are on the direction that we're headed as a country. Personally, we've not been headed in a great direction. We continue to go into a lot of debt, right, at a federal level, and of course that trickles down and this impacts us at a very local level, right, when everything gets much more expensive. And it seems like a lot of crazy things are happening. I can never keep up with the media, and frankly I don't try to at this point, because another tweet from Trump changes something on a day-to-day basis, and you can't predict the future. But what do you think's coming next for us as a country with all these changes that are happening right now?
I can tell you this. I know enough to know that I don't have that answer to that question. I think we're watching something. I mean, I believe what Trump and his team are trying to do. I've never seen this happen. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. So for me to try to use some predictor is I think really not fair, because I would literally just be grasping at straws. What I can say is, though, that I will say this: sometimes in politics, I don't have a problem with people making bold steps and bold moves. I mean, we are America. We are a very bold nation. We are a very bold country in our DNA.
Yeah.
When 13 colonies write a letter of independence to the most powerful country in the world, I mean, that's bold. So that is in our DNA. But at the same time, there has to be some flexibility and some acknowledgement that if something's not working, you do need to be flexible and change path. I mean, what's that? Like, when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing is to stop digging,
Yeah.
Stop the digging. So I just hope that, and again, I'm not in anywhere near those levels, but I hope that people are just willing to make corrections as corrections are needed. I think that's really where you can get in a lot of trouble in policy making, is when you try something, you try something, let's try something, let's take a swing at it. But once it becomes apparent that that's not working, you have to be okay with going, okay, that's not working. You don't just keep driving and smashing your head against the wall. So I hope that that is where people are at. So
how does that impact you at a local level? What has kind of been the conversation, the vibe with the community?
So, I mean, everybody, nobody wants to see stuff get more expensive,
Yep.
I mean, that hurts, the poorest among us, I mean, and so nobody wants to see that, nobody wants to see their neighbors struggling. Nobody wants their community struggling. I mean, that just creates a lot of other problems. I don't think we're there. We're not there yet, I mean, so, and who knows if that comes, and if that does happen, we like I said, time will tell. For the town and the local government, we don't interface with the federal government too much. Right. The town of Port Royal, we raise funds in a budget with basically two ways. We have property taxes and we have business license fees. And that's where we raise our budget. It's those two things. So you could see if there's less money for people to invest and people to start businesses, then that could affect, our business license fees. Where we do interact with the government, and it just wouldn't be the tariffs, but more on what you're seeing from the DOGE side is we do apply for grants from time to time when there are grant opportunities out there, whether that's usually for some sort of infrastructure project, that's for roads, that's for sewer expansion, things like that. And so we've talked about how we could see some disruption in that world. We haven't yet, but that is kind of where we're at, is on a local level, is some of those grant opportunities could potentially go away. But like as of right now, we have not seen that. So
do you deal with, more so state government at all, or is it just from, as mayor, what entity are you then dealing with the most outside of the city?
It's what comes out of Columbia affects us greatly. They're in, the government's, legislature's in session right now in Columbia. I think they've got another 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, something like that. And so, we're always keeping up with that because they pass ordinance on things like taxes, how those are raised, how taxes are paid, things about regulating Airbnbs, things about conservation, things you can have, how the beaches are taken care of. So they do pass legislation in Columbia that trickles down and affects us pretty directly.
Got it. Well, first then, I know you're very busy. There's a lot going on right now. So I want to give us a moment to properly conclude this, but I want to do it in the right way, in which we maybe add as much value as possible to the folks that are listening. As it relates to city council or town council, being mayor, being involved at a local level specifically, what other things would you like to share with people that might be helpful for them as they are considering taking that next step, maybe getting involved or running for a political office?
Well, first thing I tell people, I always ask people, do you know what district you live in? Do you know if you live in a town or an unincorporated and you're in the county? These are things I always encourage. I have actually had a nephew reach out to me, one of my cousins reach out to me, and he's recently graduated college, and he's like, I'm thinking about getting involved. I was like, go to meetings, just go to council meetings. That's the first step. It's just like anything else you want to do. You got to go watch it. You have to understand what you're talking about. Go to meetings, make friends with people. Just talk to people. Myself and my council members, we make it a point to grab coffee together. Try to get people on the same page. At the end of the day, we do live in this democracy, and you have to build, like causes. You have to bring people in. You cannot push people out. So it's, go to meetings, make friends, and just work hard and want to do the best you can. And I think things will work out for you.
Cool. People oftentimes also talk about, raising money and how difficult it is to ask other people for money when they're running for office. I hear that all the time, and they struggle with that piece of it. And so for whatever reason, they get timid or they get a little bit anxious about potentially running for office, or then they get into the arena and they start to struggle with asking for money or asking for help. I've always said to people, simply reach out, make the ask, have the conversation. If it's awkward, so be it. You're learning. That's a part of being in politics. So for those that are maybe anxious about those things too, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Well, kind of what do you do if you're going to start a business? You start with family and friends. Call. I bet your mom will give you a check. I bet your brother will give you a check. Maybe not a lot, but they'll give you, and it doesn't take much at the local level. That's the thing. At the local level, if you look at some of these towns, some of them can get crazy. But locally, if you can put together a few $1,000s, that's really what you're talking about. So it's not unattainable. You're not trying to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to run for, a city council race, and also too, the younger generation definitely has an advantage because they know how to utilize things like this. They know, it costs nothing to start a Facebook page and hop on a live stream. That's free.
Advertising.
So that is free. So there is a lot of opportunities out there if you're willing to just just the biggest step is just willing to put yourself out there and just say, hey, I'm going to run and I'm going to, film myself and that. But again, you start just like, like you would if you were starting a business. Who are you going to ask? You're going to ask your friends and family. Start with them. That was who I asked first. My first phone call was to relatives, and they gave me enough money to kind of get started. And then from there, people, a stranger is probably not going to give you any kind of funds to run. But once they see you're serious, once they see you're committed, you'd be surprised. People want to have good people serving them and representing them. So you'd be surprised how many people will come out. Here's $50. Here's $25. I mean, and that adds up. So
and they also won't know if you're a good person unless you actually start getting out there and telling us who you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why you start with mom, because mom thinks you're a good person, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then just keep calling mom to make sure you feel like a good person every single day. Maybe you make a bad decision, just call mom.
Yeah, she has donated to every single one of my campaigns. Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, Kevin, once again, I know you're super busy. I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and talk through all the above. This has been really fun. Yeah. We need to do it again. When you're in Charleston, please let me know.
I will.
Let's link up. But
I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for reaching out. And like I said, it's great to see you doing such great things, man. I'm really, really proud watching you. And when I saw you do the podcast at 45 episodes, that's awesome. Keep it going. If I can ever help in any way, if you're ever in Port Royal, let me know. But again, I hope your audience and everybody really enjoyed this. And I really mean it. If they have any questions, if you get a call, direct them to me. I mean, I love. Well,
I am going to put a link to your social media in the description, so all that'll be there. They can reach out, link to the Port Royal website as well, most likely. So we'll advertise Port Royal a good bit here, so that people don't just think of it as Buford or Hilton Head. It is obviously Port Royal, South Carolina. So Mayor Phillips, once again, thanks so much for the time, man, and look forward to staying connected.
Absolutely, Cameron. Thank you so much.
Of course.